We love our gadgets, don't we? Smartphones, tablets, Wi-Fi routers, they're everywhere. But here's a question that keeps getting swept under the rug. Are these devices safe? Specifically, what about the radio frequency, RF radiation they emit? The Biden-Harris administration, it seems, would rather not say. We're talking about potential links to cancer, heart problems, you name it. Now, I'm not saying your smartphone is a pocket-sized death ray, but shouldn't we at least be asking the question? Instead, we've got a government that's dragging its feet, ignoring court rulings, and defunding crucial research. Folks, this isn't just about science. It's about common sense. And right now, common sense seems to be on a permanent coffee break. This isn't some fringe conspiracy theory. This is about the technology we use every single day. And when the government starts acting like they've got something to hide, well, that's when you know it's time to start paying attention. Let's talk about the FCC, shall we? That's the Federal Communications Commission, the folks supposed to regulate the airwaves. Back in 2021, a court told them, quite clearly, that their safety guidelines for RF radiation were stuck in the Stone Age. They needed updating, and fast. So what did the FCC do? They took a long, hard look at those outdated guidelines and decided to do absolutely nothing. That's right, folks. They ignored a court order, because apparently, protecting the profits of telecom giants is more important than, protecting the public. Meanwhile, the evidence keeps piling up. Studies suggesting links between RF radiation and all sorts of nasty health problems. But the FCC? They'd rather bury their heads in the sand, presumably while taking a nice, long call on their government-issued cell phones. Now, if you're looking for someone to give the FCC a run for their money in the Ignoring Science Olympics, look no further than the National Toxicology Program, or NTP. These guys were actually doing important research on RF radiation. We're talking years of study, millions of dollars invested. And then, poof, they just decided to stop. Funding? Gone. Research? Shelved. Their official reason? Technical challenges. Oh, really? Because it sounds an awful lot like someone whispered, "Think of the 5G rollout," in their ear, and suddenly those technical challenges seemed insurmountable. Here's the thing. When research gets shut down this abruptly, it's hard not to be suspicious. What are they so afraid of finding? Look, I'm not saying cell phones are going to turn us all into mutants. But don't we deserve to know the risks? This isn't just about science. It's about trust. And right now, the government's trust fund is looking emptier than my 401k after a stock market crash. Section 4. Across the pond, they're paying attention, RF research around the world. Here's the thing that really grinds my gears. While the US is busy pretending RF radiation is as harmless as a lullaby, the rest of the world is, actually studying it. The European Union, for example, is taking this seriously. They're funding research, they're looking at the long-term effects, they're actually trying to protect their citizens. It's almost embarrassing, isn't it? Here we are, the supposed leaders of the free world, trailing behind everyone else when it comes to public health and safety. It's like we're stuck in a bad rom-com montage, except instead of learning to dance or bake a cake, we're just ignoring a growing mountain of scientific evidence. Section 5. Tennessee takes a stand. If only it was about BBQ, not geoengineering. Now I know what you're thinking. John, this is all very depressing. Is there any good news? Well, I'm glad you asked, because there is a glimmer of hope. And it comes from, of all places, Tennessee. Now, I'm not going to pretend I understand everything that goes on in Tennessee, but I do know this. They're not afraid to stand up for what they believe in. And recently, they've taken a stand against something called geoengineering. What is geoengineering? Well, it's basically messing with the entire planet's climate system. Think giant space mirrors or spraying chemicals into the atmosphere. Sounds crazy, right? Well, some folks think it's the answer to climate change. But the folks in Tennessee, they're not so sure. And they're not waiting around for the federal government to figure it out. They're taking action, passing laws to ban geoengineering in their state. Now, I'm not saying this is a perfect solution, but at least someone's trying to do something. At least someone's willing to stand up and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't be messing with the entire planet's atmosphere without, understanding the consequences. Section 6. The takeaway, Mr. President, it's time to start caring and listening. So, where does that leave us? Well, with a government that's more interested in protecting corporate interests than public health. A government that's happy to ignore science, ignore the courts, and ignore the concerns of its own citizens. Mr. President, with all due respect, it's time to step up. It's time to start listening to the scientists, not the lobbyists. It's time to reinstate the NTP research, update the FCC guidelines, and start taking RF radiation seriously. This isn't about politics. It's about people. It's about protecting our health, our families, and our future. And frankly, Mr. President, it's the least you can do. Because right now, the American people are getting a very clear message from their government. And that message is, your health, not our problem.